So now it's time to start with the CSS part for the stopwatch timer application. So for that we need to use the style.css file. Now inside of that, first we need to select the body element, and inside of this body element I'm going to first change the background to linear gradient. So we are going to use linear gradient function. Instead of that, first I'm going to specify the 25 degree, then the color code. So it is like hash F181 and AA, the first color, and then I'm going to use the hash D3 and then 6C76, and then I need to specify here a 50%. So when I do that, if I control save it, then you can see now the color is applied. Now we are going to change the display to flex. So first I'm going to here change the display to flex, and after that I will be here using the justify content to center. If I control save it, now you can see the content is shifted to the center of the screen. Then I will be using here align items, which is going to be the center, and then I need to provide here a min height, which is like 100 VH. If I control save it, then you can see everything is now centered to the browser screen. And after that I need to here use the font family. So the font family that I will be using here so I will be using here a sans serif font. If I control save it, then you can see now the font is applied to the particular elements. After that we need to style the container, which is like this particular one. So for that we need to select the main container. So I'm using here a dot because it is a class, so we need to use the class selector. So in order to use the class selector in CSS, we need to use here a dot. So I will be here specifying the container, which is the name of our selector, and instead of this selector, first I will be changing the background color. So the background color that I will be using here, which is like EE, and then we need to specify 9E9, which is like a gray color, and then I need to actually change its border radius. So border, here I'm going to specify the border radius. So the border radius is going to be 16 pixels. So we will get these rounded corners. And after that, we need to specify the padding property. So the padding property value that is going to be here is like 20 pixel. And after that, we need to specify the box shadow so that we can get this nice 3D effect behind the container. So for that, we will be using here a box shadow property 0012 pixel, which is for the blurriness, and then I will be here using the RGBA value, which is like 000, and for the alpha is going to like 0.1. So now you can see it has a box shadow property applied to the container, and now it's getting a shadow, means it's actually showing the shadow. After that we need to use the display property. So I will be using here a display, and if I will be here using the flex, you can say everything is now actually centered to the one line. Then we need to use here the flex direction. So flex direction I will be using here a column. You can see everything is now structured in a form of column, and after that I need to specify the align items to the center. So all items is now actually placed centered to the screen, which is the stopwatch timer, which is actually, if I come back to the index.html, inside of the container we have 4 elements, means the 2 main elements. The first is the h1 element, which is the heading, and then we have this main element, which is the stopwatch. Okay, so now everything is actually at the center of the screen. So the next step is we need to actually style the title. So for that we need to actually select the title here. To start the opening and closing bracket of the title. So the first we need to here specify the font size property. So font size is going to be like 30 pixel, and after that we need to provide the margin bottom property. So margin bottom is going to like 1.5 RAM units. You can see now we have actually styled the title, which is our stopwatch timer title. Then we need to style the stopwatch, which is this particular container, which is the main container. Inside the container, which is the stopwatch that has the entire elements placed, which is this particular timers, like the timer, or I can say that this controls, and then we have this lap timer. Alright, so we need to style this one. So for that we need to select the timer because it is also a selector, a class selector, so we will be using here a dot. After that, first I will be changing the font size. So font size is like 40 pixel. Then we need to change the background color and also the padding. So I will be using here a pure white background color, so it is like hashtag FF 6 times F. So now you can see it's actually having a white color applied, and then we need to apply the padding. So padding is going to be like 20 pixel. And then for the rounded corners, we need to use the border radius. So border radius is going to be like 18 pixel, means the 8 pixel, not 18. Now you can see the changes of these properties are reflected back to this timer container. Alright, which is a timer, but I am also saying it as a container because it actually contains all the elements of the span tag. After that, we need to apply the box shadow property. So here I will be applying the box shadow 0, 0, and then 12 pixel is going to be the blurriness. And then I will be using here RGB value, which is this particular one. You can see now the box shadow is applied to the timer. And after that, I need to apply an animation code, but for that, we need to create the pulse animation keyframes. So I will be here creating the pulse animation keyframe by using the @keyframes, and then here we need to place the identifier, which is going to be the like pulse, the name of the identifier. Inside of that, we will be using the from, and then to start its bracket. And after that, we need to here specify the to property, and then we need to start its own curly brackets. Inside of the from, I will be using the transform property, and then we need to use here a scale, and then the value is actually like 1. And then we need to here provide the another transform property because we want to transform its position, and then we need to here use the scale, and inside of that I will specify the 1.05. If I control save it, right now nothing will be happen because we need to use this pulse animation. So we want to use this pulse animation inside this timer. So here I will be using the animation. Then we need to specify the name of the animation, which is the pulse animation we want to use. Then we need to specify the duration, which is like 1.5s, and then we want to infinitely run this animation and alternate. If I control save it, you can see this pulse animation is now playing. Alright, then we need to actually move these controllers little bit by applying the margin property. So our next step is we need to actually style this, but before that we need to actually format this span tag. So whenever the value of these actually change, so it is not going to shift the content, because when there is a 1-digit value, 2-digit value, it is going to change its position, which I explained in many of my previous courses as well. So I will be here selecting the timer again by specifying the dot because it is a timer. Inside of the timer we need to select the span element, and then we need to start its block of code. Then we need to first apply the width, which is like 110 pixel, and after that we need to apply the display property, which is like inline block, and then we need to apply the text align property to the center. So whenever the value of these particulars will be changed, so it remains in that same position. So this particular property take care of that particular bug of the CSS. Alright, so that marks the completion of the code for the timer. So our next step is we need to style these controls, which is the start, stop, pause and reset buttons. So for that we need to use the controls. So controls is basically the division name, that is this one. Inside of that we have these 4 buttons. So first I am going to select these controls. So coming back to the CSS part, pasting the name of the controls, which is a class selector here, and then inside of that first I will be changing the display to flex. If I did it, you can see everything is now placed in a single line very close to each other. Then we need to apply the gap property. So gap is going to be like 1 rem units. If I apply the gap, then you can see now there is a 1 gap applied, means 1 rem gap is applied to the controls. Next we need to provide the styles for the buttons. So I will be selecting the button. Inside of that, first I will be applying the padding property. So padding is going to like 0.75 rem unit, and then we need to apply the 1.5 rem unit. So you can see now the buttons is actually change its shape, which is from top and bottom is like 0.75 rem, and from left and right it is going to be 1.5 rem units. Alright, then I am going to here use the font size property. Inside of the font size I am applying the 1 rem unit, and after that I will be here applying the background color property. So the background color is going to like F25191. So this will be the background colors for the button. You can see now the styles is applied to the all buttons. After that we need to apply the color, which is to change its color to white, which is this one, and then I need to remove the border. So we are going to use here a border and specify the value to border as none. You can see now the border is actually removed from the buttons. After that we need to apply the another property, which is border radius. Border radius is going to like 8 pixel, and then we need to apply the cursor property. So cursor is going to be like pointer. If I control save it, you can see now the border radius is applied, which is 8 pixel, and now the cursor is changed whenever I hover over this particular button. Then we need to apply the transition properties. So there should be a smooth transition whenever we hover over the button. So it is like background color. So we need to apply the transition to the background color. So background color, then we need to remove this particular colon, because here we need to specify the time duration, which is 0.3s, and then here I will be using the ease in, ease out. Then we need to select the button again. So here we need to select the button, then specify the column, then hover, and then we need to start its block of code. And here I will be using the background color, hash time, and then here we need to use the D772A76. Actually here we need to use the D7. If I control save it, and if I hover over it, then you can see the color of the button becomes little more darker. And then we can apply some margins, because right now you can see it's actually overlapping these buttons. In the final version you can see there is a space, or inside of this one there is no space is applied. So to fix this particular overlapping, we need to actually provide the code inside this particular stopwatch, which is this particular class. Okay, so for inside of that, after the title, we need to provide the code inside of that. So for that, after this particular title, here I will be selecting the stopwatch. So I will be here using the stopwatch and then starting its block of the code. Inside of that, first I will be changing the display property to like flex. Alright, and then I will be here using the flex direction to column. Alright, and after that I will be here using the align items to the center. If I control save it, you can see button is now moved. Then we need to apply the gap property. So gap is going to be like 20 pixel. So now you can see there is a gap between these two, controller and also this timer. So now you can see the problem is fixed. Now the next thing is we need to apply the style code for this particular lapse timer. So after the end of this button hover, we need to select the lap title. So coming back to the index.html, so here I will be selecting the lap title. It is actually a class name. So coming back to here, specifying the dot, then pasting the name of the lap, which is lap title. And inside of that, first I will be changing the font size. So font size is going to be like 1.5 rem unit. Alright, if I control save it, you can see now the title of the lap timer is changed. Okay, and after that we need to provide the code for the laps. Inside of the laps, we need to provide the width to 100%. Control save it. Now you can see the content is actually shifted to the left of the screen. Alright, then we need to provide the code for the UL tag, which is the unordered list. Instead of that, we need to first provide the list style type to actually none. If I did it, you can see the default styling of the list is removed. Then we need to specify the padding to 0, and also we need to provide the margin to 0. You can see now the list item is actually shifted to the left of the container. Alright, and then we need to provide the overflow y to actually auto. Okay, and then we need to provide the maximum height to this particular list is going to be like 200 pixel. And then we need to provide the background color. So background color, I will be using here a white one. Alright, control save it. You can see now the background color is applied to the unordered list item. Alright, which is the unordered list. And then we need to provide the border radius, because we want a rounded border corners. So for that we will be using the 8 pixel. And then I will be here using the box shadow. So box shadow is like 0, 0, 12 pixel, which is the blurriness. And then I will be using a RGBA value. Control save it, and you can see the box shadow is applied. Then we need to provide the style code for the list item, which is li item. Okay, inside of that we need to provide the padding, which is going to be like 1 rem unit. And then we need to provide the border bottom, which is this one, which is like 1 pixel, which is like solid border. And then the color of the border that we want, which is like E0, E0 and E0. Next, we need to provide some more code for this particular list item. So here I will be using the list tag, again here li, and then we need to provide the last child, which is a property. So last child, we need to apply the border So border, and we need to actually remove the border bottom, which is like none, because in the last child property we are going to remove the border. And inside of the list tag we have the span element li, and then we have the span element. If I come back to the index.html, so we can see here this particular span element. Now this particular span element does what I mean here, because right now inside of the index.html you will see there is no span element, it just have a one UL element. But in the final version of the application, this will be the span element. Instead of that we are going to display the font value, means instead of that we are going to display this timer value. So that is the reason we will be using this particular style once we complete the JavaScript code, means we are going to use this style code inside the JavaScript. Okay, so here I will be increasing the font weight to 700. Okay, control save it, then you can see there is nothing will be applied to this particular list item. That is because this whole code will be applied once we add a list item inside this UL tag, because right now we have formatted the UL tag, so the impact of all of this particular code is applied here, means the style of all of this style is applied here, but this list item tags value is not applied. This is because we have nothing added under this particular UL element, because we have not created any list item in this UL element. Okay, so we are going to update this UL list by using JavaScript in our next part, which is the JavaScript part of this particular application, which is the stopwatch timer application.